So I'm thinking about moving my personal website over to Nuxt. In this tutorial, I want to walk through some of the reasons for doing so, and then we'll take a look at getting started with Nuxt 3. If you're new here, my name is Dan Vega, and I run the website danvega.dev, which is the topic for today. Before we get started, I really want to just start with building your own personal sites. I've been doing this for about 20 years, a little over 20 years now. And early on, I decided to make a personal site. And I think there were a lot of really great things that came out of that. One of which was I got to start using some open source software. I learned how to not only build my own site, but then deploy it to production. So I think if you're kind of new, just starting off in your career, building some type of portfolio site or personal site is a really great way to get involved in, building something that's real, that's tangible, that you can point people to. So this has been really kind of a passion of mine over the years. It's evolved in many, many ways. I think at the core of it, though, it's been a way for me to tell people about me and my story and a place for me to blog. I really have enjoyed blogging for a long time. It's given me an opportunity, again, if you're new around here, this is old news, but it's given me an opportunity to learn things and then teach them back to you. So with that, I think what we'll do is we'll take a little tour around my personal site right now, and I'll just give you some functionality, how it works, what it does. I'm really excited about the future of Nuxt, so this is going to be fun. So with that, let's jump on into it. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is kind of walk through some of the current functionality and what it's missing and what I'm trying to gain from moving over to Nuxt. So this is my website. It's more of a kind of marketing website. It's not a really, there's no app functionality. The highlights of it are it houses my blog, a place where you can see all of the courses that I have created, sign up for my newsletter, as well as dig through the archives and just find out more about me, contact me, that kind of thing. So this is currently written in Gridsome, which is a Jamstack framework for Vue.js. And what I really love about this is it makes a statically generated website. And what I love about this is that it's very fast. I came from, at one point, my website was in WordPress. I had tons of plugins. It was not responsive. It was slow. I want like snappy, fast. That's the most important thing to me. So for that reason, I am not using any server-side code. I'm a huge Java Spring guy, but right tool for the right job, right? What I want is a static site so that it's very fast and responsive to the user. So here on the homepage, you can just see I have some information about me, my latest articles, a featured course. Hey, go follow me on YouTube. Here's some social icons down here. We'll come back to this. Really, I want people to sign up for my newsletter. It's free. It's something I just deliver every Monday and just kind of talk to you about, hey, this is what's going on. This is what I did last week, maybe what I have upcoming this week. And here are a bunch of cool links that I found around the web. So it's my blog, same thing. You can always get to that. Up here, you can search for blog items too. So if you start searching for Spring Boot and we wanted to jump to Spring Boot Entity Scan, we could. Here on courses, we just have a list of courses. They're really just links to my Udemy page at this point. My newsletter, as I said, we have a way to sign up here. Here's the most recent newsletter, and you can kind of read through it. A little bit of an about me and a place to contact me, which is hooked up to a Netlify form. My website is hosted on Netlify. One of the links that you won't find on here, which I really should do a better job of promoting, is a uses. And so that talks through all of what the website is built on, what I use to record tutorials, etc. So if you want to go through here, you can see it's hosted on Netlify. So that is the current website. Here's one of the things that I'm trying to fix. So if you look at this MacBook Pro review, one thing that I'm trying to do is this particular call out right here, this what's on my desk. This has a bunch of links to affiliate links on Amazon. So this is kind of one thing. What I'm trying to do is create little ads or banners within my blog posts, because if I'm going to take the time to read them, I either want to push some affiliate links, or I want to push people to courses that I've created or a video that I've created on the topic. And again, that's just something that I would like to be doing. So if you keep going down, another thing you have in here, and again, I was just testing something out. This is kind of a banner for, hey, if you want to support this website, you can go buy me a coffee, right? And this is actually just hooked up to a ConvertKit tip jar, which you can just send me a quick tip. So that's the idea behind it. More so, like in blog posts, I want to promote like my newsletter. Again, free. These aren't ads in the sense of I always want to make money, but if I'm talking to you about something I talked about in my newsletter, it'd be nice to have a banner that says, hey, if you want to sign up for my newsletter, you can do so here. Or, hey, I got this question in my course for Spring Boot 2 the other day. Hey, let's throw an ad in there, a banner for that particular course, so you can go sign up for that. And this is really hard to do in Gridsome right now because I can't use dynamic components within my Markdown. Now, this is something you can do in frameworks like Nuxt and Next, and this is something that I want to be able to do. So if I could, just in a particular blog post, have a component for newsletter, now any blog post that has that newsletter component will use that one component. Right now, anytime I make changes to the component, I only have to do it in one place. I don't have to go search across 25 blog posts and kind of update that code there. So that's really the reasoning behind wanting to make the change. That is really the biggest reason. The other reason is Gridsome is not really being updated. So if you go through there and take a look at kind of Gridsome, the project, there's a lot going on, but not a lot of movement on the project. And listen, I completely get it. I am not throwing shade at anyone. I mean, open source software is a tough business, and I'm not, again, I absolutely love Gridsome, the framework. I think it's got, I'm really glad I moved over to it. I just think there are some needs that I don't have time to kind of contribute to Gridsome. And so I kind of want to go with Nuxt just because it is very active. It has a lot of the features I need, and it's moved to things like Vue 3, which I would love to be able to use in my personal site. So those are kind of the functionality of the website, the reasons I want to move to Nuxt. And so with that, let's take a look at Nuxt itself. All right, so now we're going to talk about Nuxt. And if you head over to the nuxt.js.org website, the first thing you'll find is that you'll land on the Nuxt 2 version. So you have to go to v3.nuxt.js.org, and you'll see this big beta sign next to it. So the important thing to remember about this is that Nuxt 3 is in beta. They've done a lot of really big updates to the framework, and so this is a completely new version, and they are going through the kind of beta cycle now of testing everything out and making sure everything is compatible. So this isn't ready for production yet, but luckily for me, I'm not in like a rush timeline where this has to be done in a month. So I'm going to just be able to progressively move my website over, and hopefully sometime next year we'll have this completed. So you can start here, you can read the announcement, you can go through kind of what are the new features. Hey, it's lighter, it's faster, those are always good things. You can fetch data in any component before or after navigation. We get to use Vue 3, which is a big selling point for me. You get the composition API. They have a Nuxt CLI and Nuxt Dev Tools. You get to use Vite. So Vite is, for me, the future of build tools, really. Vite is an awesome build tool that if you haven't had a chance, go ahead and check that out. Again, Vue 3, TypeScript right out of the box with no crazy steps required. And I'm saying all of this coming to you from not ever using Nuxt 2. I've seen tutorials on Nuxt 2. I've never actually built anything in Nuxt 2, though. So the first thing that you'll notice is they talk about Nitro Engine. So this is the really the full stack. So it uses rollup and Node.js workers, and it really gives you some server code in context isolation. So we'll look at an example of this, but you can create a server API directory or a server middleware directory, and write your JavaScript, TypeScript files, whatever, and add routes, APIs, whatever you need, right in your Nuxt application. So Nitro is what is kind of powering that. There's a Nuxt bridge if you want to kind of convert your Nuxt 2 projects over to Nuxt 3. But that, I haven't really messed with that. I'm going to start a new project today as a Nuxt 3 project. So once you get to there, you'll see we don't want Nuxt 2 documentation. We'll say getting started. So here in the introduction, again, Nuxt 3 is currently in beta. Remember that it is not production ready yet. So thank you in advance for your understanding. So first off, prerequisites. What do you need? We need Node.js. The latest long-term supported version would be great. Visual Studio Code. The Volar extension will help with Vue support. And if you've got Node installed, you can go ahead and check your version with node -- version. Make sure that you're running 14 or 16 at the time of this recording. So then you need to decide, do you want Nuxt 3 or a bridge? A bridge is really helping you get your Nuxt 2 project over to Nuxt 3. For me, again, this is going to be a brand new project, so I'm just going to start a Nuxt 3 project, but there's information for doing both. So we'll go to this installation section in just a second. But what I want to talk about too is, what is available in Nuxt 3 right now, and what are we waiting for still? And that's really a big thing. So if you look at this Nuxt 3 column, you kind of see all of the advantages that it has over, say, a Nuxt 2. Now, again, some of these things aren't done yet. Now, so Vite is still experimental here, so that isn't like finalized. And static site generation is not yet finalized. So that's a big thing for me that is going to prevent me from just trying to get this up. Another thing is if you come up here and go over to GitHub, I think I got it open already, and you go to discussions, this module support status discussion is pinned up here. This is a good chance to go through here and kind of read some of the comments of what's going on with different modules. So Nuxt has a really big module and plugin ecosystem. And so if you want to use something like Nuxt has a Nuxt image component that will help with rendering images out and doing lazy loading and that kind of thing. That is currently not ready. So there are some big modules and / plugins. And actually, again, I'm pretty new to Nuxt, so I don't know if there's a difference between a module and a plugin. I think so. I'll have to do some more research on that. But those are some big things that you're going to want or probably need to move a website over here or an application over. One of the big ones is Nuxt content, which is going to allow me to move my blog and my newsletter over to Nuxt. And that currently is not ready. So there are some big showstoppers there. And so I just want you to be aware of that before you get started. So with that, again, back on the introduction page, you'll go to Nuxt 3, go to the installation section, and here are the getting started for creating your Nuxt 3 app. We're going to go ahead and jump in and do that ourselves. All right, so here we are in Visual Studio Code with our application open up in the browser. The first thing we're going to look at is you'll see that there is an app.view and there's a template. And you'll see there's a component there called Nuxt Welcome. And that is what is displaying this welcome page. You also notice that there is no welcome component in here. So if you look at Nuxt and look at components, you'll see that it actually is imported automatically for you from Node Modules Nuxt 3 dist app components. So this is the default component that is showing there. So if you wanted to go ahead and change this, you could. You can just say h1. Let's do the traditional hello Nuxt 3, and we'll save that, and we're not running, so let's go ahead and run this again. So npm run dev, And it's going to go ahead and run, and now we have our Hello Nuxt 3. And then we get hot module replacement by just go ahead and changing this, and it's updated in our application. So that will get us started. Now we need to take a look at, okay, what are these directories, what are these files that we get out of the box? And so to do that, I would head over to the docs. And the first thing that you can kind of look at is this directory structure. So this will tell you kind of all of the files and folders that you will find in a Nuxt application. So this is a good place to start, starting with, hey, there's that Nuxt folder that we saw. You should not touch any files in this. This is created by Nuxt. If you do something like a build for production, that will get output to the output directory. Things like assets and components and layouts and pages and public and server, all the things that we're going to kind of talk about today. Another important one to look at is the nuxt.config.ts. This is the Nuxt configuration file. So things that you need to configure within Nuxt, this is where you want to look. So if you come back over here and look at Nuxt config, see, I really don't have anything in here yet. You will as the kind of project goes along, but this lets you know what configurations are available to you. Then you have your package.json, your TypeScript config. Again, I kind of tell everybody this whenever you know, I know some people are new to kind of JavaScript in the NPM world, but package.json is the place to look for your commands. So if you wanted to, if you run npm run dev under the hood, it's running nuxi dev. If you run npm run build under the hood, it's running nuxi build and start and so on. So that's kind of the directory structure. The next thing I want to look at is pages. So here's the pages directory. The pages directory is optional, meaning that if all you want to do is use the app.view, then view router will not be included and you don't need to have a pages directory. This will obviously reduce your application's bundle size. So again, my goal for this is not to go through the docs one by one. I just want to show you where that is, and then we'll kind of walk through it together. So let's go back over here. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and delete this. So we're going to say delete, and we're going to start a new folder called pages. And now inside of here is how, you know, the pages, the view files that we create are how it's going to build out our application. So if we just want a home page, we can start with index.view, and this is going to be our home page. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start off with a template, and inside that template, I'll go ahead and and we'll say home page, because actually this is going to be an H1. We're no longer using, let's just say home page, and now if we save, this should get rebuilt. And actually we knocked out that app.js, so we may need to run this again. And refresh. Okay, so there's our home page. So again, that is just creating a page, and now what it does underneath the hood is set up view router for you, and you have this home page. Likewise, if we wanted to, let's go ahead and just copy this. We'll come in here and we'll create a new file called about. And if we say about page, now in here, we can go to /about, and now we have a /about. So that's just kind of the very tip of the iceberg with pages. You can get very creative. You can start creating dynamic pages. You can do things like add meta tags. You can create error pages. So let's take a look at just a couple of those. So dynamic routes, again, if you wanted to create something with like an ID, so under pages, under users, if you had a ID of 2.view, that would render the user ID 2, and that way you could have one template for all of your dynamic content. So in the case of my blog, I would have one template with a dynamic route of, like, say, the slug of the blog post that we were trying to render. So this allows you to create dynamic routes. You can do things like navigation. So we'll talk about this in a bit. I'll throw the navigation into a layout when we get to it. But you can also do things like nested routes. You can also do, let's see if they're in here. Layouts, node, plugin. No, it's not here, but you can also do, you can add meta tags in here. So if we wanted to go ahead and set up some metadata, if you wanted to in either a layout or a page, you can add metadata components. So you could have meta components if you want. Everything that you would need to do within a templating system, Nuxt gives you that ability right out of the box. So the next thing I want to look at is, now that we have these pages, what about layouts? Like, we don't want to have a common layout repeated in every one of our pages. So how do we do that? All right, so we're back in the docs in the layout section. So Nuxt provides a customizable layout framework that you can use throughout your application. So again, the layouts directory doesn't exist. We're going to want to go ahead and create this layouts directory. Oops. And so inside of layouts, we can, if you create a layouts/default.view, this will be used for all the pages in your application. Now, there are ways you can create more custom layouts and use different layouts for different situations. But for right now, we're just going to create a default layout. So in here, I'm going to say default.view, and I'm going to go ahead and create a template. And inside of that template, I'm going to go ahead and create some info. So we're going to use that the HTML. So if you remember back to the meta tags, there was a way to use kind of meta tag components. And here I'm just doing that. Here I'm saying, hey, here's a HTML component, here's a head component, and within there, here's a title component. And we're just going to say, welcome to danvega.dev. So now underneath that, what I can do is have some header information, and then maybe some, the actual page, and then the footer, and that would kind of make our page, that would put our page together. For right now, I just want to go ahead and say slot. So if you're looking at the docs over here, if in your layout files, you need to use the slot to define where the page content of your layout will be loaded. So anything above this is shared. Anything where the slot is where your page is going to be brought in. So if we head back over to here and we look at index, we'll probably need to do this again. And now we have our home page, but you see the title up here is Welcome to Dan Vega. So now what we could do is actually go ahead and add some header information. So maybe we might want to have a header where we have some navigation, right? So let's say we'll use some semantic HTML here for header, and we'll say danvega.dev. And then underneath there, we'll go ahead and add an unordered list with some list items. And this is going to be in the documentation as well, but you can use a Nuxt link component. And this is really just kind of a facade on top of the router link that comes with View Router. But what we're going to say is this one is going to home. And then what we'll do is we'll just copy this. And let's just keep it at that for now. So this will be /about and about. So now we have our navigation and we have our slot. And then maybe we want just say like a footer down here after this. So we'll say footer, copyright, and copy 2021. And we'll say okay, that's enough for a footer. So now we have our main H1, and then we have our navigation, and then maybe we have a page title. So let's go back to our pages. We'll just kind of change this to an H2 and an H2 in here as well. Not an H21. Okay, so now we'll have our H1, our navigation, our page title, and then our footer. So you can see that layouts are going to definitely help us out here with kind of extracting that common layout functionality. But we can kind of take this one step further. So there's also a components directory. So a component will allow us to import any of those components in that components directory right into your layouts and your pages. So we don't have to go and like import every single component that we create. So let's go ahead and start with a components directory. And in here, we'll go ahead and create a new file. We'll call this, it keeps doing that for me. Call this the header.view, and we'll call another one the footer.view, right? So now we can come in here and we're just going to extract this out into a component. So this will go in the header, this will go in a template section, and that's all there is to that. And then we'll pull the footer out and we'll put that in a template. And now in our default layouts, what we could do is go ahead and pull these in. So we can say the header, and we'll talk about that in a second. So let's refresh, and it is. So one thing that you want to note about components, and they reference this in the documentation. So if you have components in nested directories, therefore the component's name will be something like this. Where is it? I thought that you couldn't have component names with the, well, maybe you can. Let's try it. So I thought that you had to have the closing component, but that might be in a different situation. This still works, so we're going to stick with that. But see, the nice thing is if you've ever come from writing Vue applications, you would have to like go into a script section and import this component where Nuxt is automatically importing this component for us. So now we have our layouts and we've extracted some of that functionality into different components. So far, we've taken a look at having pages, layouts, and components, and those really are the building blocks for our application. So far, so good. We're moving right along. Next, let's go ahead and take a look at the server directory. And the server directory is used to create any backend logic for your Nuxt application. It supports hot module replacement and powerful features. So the first thing we're going to take a look at here is API routes. So all we need to do is create a directory called server and API, and then any TypeScript or JavaScript file that we put in there will serve as an API route. So let's see how this will work. Again, we're going to go ahead and create a new directory. We'll create a server API directory. And then under API, we'll create a new file called hello.js. So in the JavaScript file here, we are just going to go ahead and export a default. It's going to take in a request and a response, and it's going to return hello world. So again, pretty standard. And as we save that, now what happens is Nuxt will create a route for us on localhost 3000/API/hello. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So we say API/hello, and we get that hello world. So now what we can do is go ahead and use that as a way to add some backend logic to our application. So what I want to do is head over to index.view, and right now we have just this static home page. So what I want to do is go in here and create a script setup. So now I can actually use the setup feature function in Vue 3, and I have this script block. So now I'm just going to say const data is equal to, and now I need a way to get data from my server. So if we go back to the documentation, you will see data fetching in here. So this is where you want to look if you need to get data from somewhere. And there's a bunch of different ways that you can do this. One way is just to use fetch. And so within your pages, your components, and your plugins, you can use fetch to universally fetch from any URL. So you can see the usage here. Here are some of your available options, and so on. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and await. So this is a async function. So we're going to say use fetch, and we're just going to give it a URL. So we're going to say /API/hello. And now that is going to give us some data back. So now here in our H2, we can just say, let's output whatever that value is. And so now if I go back to our home page here, which is our index, we have some information coming back. So this is, here's our data. So actually we want to destructure that. Let's go ahead and pull the data out of there, and that'll just give us that hello world. So now we have some ability to create routes and back-end functionality in our Nuxt app, and this is really powerful. So before this, and especially in just a plain Vue application, right? You'd have to set up a node server, you'd have to set up maybe an Express middleware, or you can use server-side software. Like I could go into Java and in Spring and create some API routes for this, but now you can do it right here in your application. And this really comes in handy when you're trying to do something like hide API keys, right? Like, hey, I want to use the YouTube API to find out like how many likes or how many likes a particular video got, right? You don't want to use those API keys in a front-end application because those will be seen across the wire. You need a server somewhere to kind of store those, right? So that's a good use case for that. So you could start to do some really cool things here right in your Nuxt application using the server API, and it's so easy to get set up. So I would suggest going into the documentation and taking a look at all the different things that you can do using that server directory. And I think what we'll do in a later tutorial, as this one's starting to get a little long already, is we'll do some, we'll kind of expand on this. We'll create, like a large JSON file that we can then read in a server function and pull that data into a particular view and display it. So if you're interested in that, let me know below and we'll get that going right away. All right, I think that's where we'll go ahead and end this tutorial, but I think this is going to be an exciting series. So I'd really like to hear from you what you're interested in seeing in this. I plan on documenting my whole process of really just exploring Nuxt first, like how do we do different things. I talked about we're gonna work on some more server APIs. I want to do a video on Tailwind and Nuxt 3 and Tailwind 3 because I'll go ahead and convert all of my current HTML templates over to Tailwind. So I'll do something on that. Really just start to explore Nuxt 3 and what it can offer us. And then the whole migration path, how I move my entire site over to there. I'm sure there's going to be, I have a ton of blog posts, a ton of newsletters. There'll be some challenges, I'm sure, but nothing we can't get past. So I hope this is something you're interested in. I'm going to have some fun with this. I like that I'm not on a timeline here. As I said throughout this video, Nuxt 3 is still in beta, so it's something that we're going to have to watch and see as it progresses. But I'm in no rush. This is just something I want to get done. So we'll take this journey together, and I hope you enjoy it along with me. But if you did find some value in this video and you're enjoying this and you want to see more, please give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and as always, friends, happy coding.